No. You might think that I'm the person who was doing the introductions earlier, but I think you'll find that that person wasn't wearing a fabulous hat.
True.
True facts. Now, the story of Aubrey Mousehead is inspired by, among other things, the unique atmosphere, the very particular magic of two places, Cornwall and London. And for that reason, I wanted to bring you some stories today that carry with them a sense of place, of the genius loci, the spirits of these locations. So now, I would like you all to know that you are not in Cardiff, you are in a liminal place, an anywhere place. It's just a pub, after all. A pub like this could be anywhere in Britain. A pub like this could be, for instance, a refuge from the salt spray of the sea at Pendower Cove, near the village of Zennor in Cornwall. You can hear the sea, if you listen carefully, just outside the windows. Makes some weird noises, the sea, sometimes. Oh, it's all lovely.
Sea lion.
Yes, that's a sea lion. It reminds me of a story. It happened long ago, a long time ago. I was a child. And in those days, there wasn't much you could do in the little village of Zennor in Cornwall, apart from go to church. So we did, every Sunday, religiously, literally religiously. And every Sunday it was the same. Except one day it wasn't. One day there was a woman there, a richly dressed, beautiful woman. A woman, in fact, of such otherworldly beauty that no one could take their eyes off her. She arrived, she listened very properly to the sermon, she sang along to the hymns with a voice that sounded like sunlight and dreams and sighs of pleasure. And then she left. This happened a few more times over several months. This beautiful woman would arrive, she'd listen, she'd sing, and she'd leave without speaking a word to anyone. And although she spoke not a word to anyone, many, many men fell in love with her. And most of all, Matthew Trewalla. He was the choir master. He was a young, handsome choir master and had the most beautiful voice in the village. And he was madly in love with this mysterious woman. So much so that he decided that he would find out more about her. So rather than talk to her, because no one ever talks to anyone in stories if they want to get to know them, he followed her away from the church and over across the cliffs to the sea. He never returned to Zennor. He was never seen again. And it seemed like that was the end of the story. The years passed, the story of the mysterious disappearance of Matthew Trewalla descended into memory. But then one Sunday, many years later, a ship cast anchor off of Pendower Cove. The captain, who was sitting on the deck, heard a voice calling him, a beautiful, musical, otherworldly voice coming from the sea. And when he looked over the side of the ship, he saw a mermaid with her beautiful golden hair flowing all around her. And the mermaid said very politely, "Would you mind moving your ship? Because, you know, it's right over my front door." She was anxious, you see, to get back to her husband, Matthew Trewalla. and their 4 beautiful mer-children. Now, he was a smart man, and so he knew, as any smart person knows, that mermaids aren't all sweetness and light. So he very quickly did as he was told, let her get into her mermaid house, and then ran back. You upstaging me, Jacasa? And then ran back to tell all the people of the village about Matthew Torwalla's fate. And they, also being smart people, were worried that there might be some kind of retribution from this mermaid if they didn't pay her proper tribute. And so they commissioned a carving of her likeness in the back of the pew where she had sat in the church. And you can see it to this day in the church at the village of Zennor in Cornwall, the Zennor mermaid. Now, anybody who knows me, I haven't finished. Don't you think I've finished? Wait, I have more things to say. Anybody who knows me will know that I really like mermaids. I'm a mermaidy kind of person. And I was very disappointed to see that I couldn't find any mermaid tales to regale you with from London. Because London, as it turns out, is a distinctly mermaid-scarce kind of a place. Unless you count the bronze statue by the Thames and all of the Starbuckses. Okay. So, to find the spirit of London, we have to go down other avenues, sometimes rather dark, shadowy avenues. It's nice being indoors, isn't it? Away from all that London smog that's starting to seep in through the windows. Of course, there isn't only smog out there. In the early 19th century, there was a spate of reports of ghosts stalking the streets of London. Pale-faced and insubstantial, they would attack anybody who was fool enough to walk alone at night. Then in 1837, a woman who was, again, foolishly walking alone at night, suddenly had a very strange man jump out at her. He jumped out, kissed her all over her face, scratched at her clothing with his long animal-like claws, and then disappeared. The next day, the very same man was seen spooking a horse and making a carriage fall over into the street. He laughed, breathed fire, and then jumped over a 9-foot wall to escape. The strange, cloaked, fiery-eyed, fire-breathing figure, known as Spring-Heeled Jack, haunted London for 10 years afterwards. He made it into the Penny Dreadfuls, along with Varney the Vampire and Sweeney Todd. These are the stories that are known as urban myths, the folklore of cities. And London, being one of the world's major cities, has more than its fair share, because it's a pretty creepy place. Take, for example, the very real network of tunnels underneath the city, that labyrinthine underworld that we affectionately refer to as the Tube. In the early days of the London Underground, urban legend has it that the Royal London Hospital commissioned its own secret line. It wasn't a passenger line. In fact, most of the people who rode on it were dead. You see, the morgues were overflowing, and they commissioned this line so that all of the surplus corpses could be ferried underneath the hospital to Whitechapel Station, where they would be piled up in a spare ticket office, just metres away from the unknowing commuters. In the 1920s, the ghost of the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh was said to haunt the now disused British Museum station. Her screams were heard echoing along the tunnels. In 1935, a movie was made of this story, and on the day of the premiere, 2 women disappeared from Holborn Station, the next station along from British Museum. Strange markings were found on the wall where they disappeared. Now, there's a beast in Hackney Marshes. There's a vampire in Highgate Cemetery. And that's not to mention all of the very, very horribly haunted pubs. But that's another story. Of course, none of this is true. You are in Cardiff. There's no sea outside, there are no ghosts, only cars and rain and pigeons. And there's nothing in here but storytellers and stories. But I will tell you one very true thing before I go. This is absolutely true, this is absolute gospel. It is very good luck to shake a storyteller by the hand, and it is even better luck to buy her a drink. Yeah?